Fly fishing offers so much more. It offers so many different styles of fishing, so many different places you can catch a fish. And frankly, it gets me outside, gets me out in God's creation. I never find a place as beautiful as a river. So I'm Jeremiah Bakk. I'm a professional fly fishing guide in Colorado and in Wyoming. And yeah, I'm an addicted fly fisherman as well. I fish as much as I can on my own. I try to introduce as many people to it as I possibly can. And it's one of the joys of my life, to be honest with you. And I think I have the best job in the entire world. I get to play on rivers with great people, catching trout, hunting fish, and introducing people to the great outdoors. Couldn't be better. It was fun to see Trey kind of develop an enthusiasm for fly fishing and a little bit of energy around what this whole thing was. And so several years ago, we had started to talk about what it would look like to work together to create a fly rod and a fly reel and some fly fishing equipment with Kistler rods. So about almost a year and a half to 2 years ago, we birthed the Kistler fly reel. And it started on a piece of paper with a hand drawing. Trey asked me to work with him and design my ideal trout rod and reel, and we started with the reel. That kind of spawned like an imagined reality where Kistler Rods was building fly rods and fly reels and who knows what else in the fly fishing industry in the future. But we had to start somewhere, so we started with a reel, and it was great. So we prototyped it, we tested it for a year and a half, over 2,000 hours of testing on Colorado rivers, on Wyoming rivers. I took it up to Alaska and fished it in Bristol Bay on the salmon rivers. And that's how Kistler fly fishing has come to be. We wanted to build a trout rod that is going to be able to catch big trout on windy Wyoming rivers, fishing from a drift boat, as well as a rod that's going to cast a tiny little trico dry fly to a rising fish 30 feet away on a flat, calm river. What we did was we worked on a couple of different versions of this carbon fiber rod. We also wanted to make it stealthy. So much of my guiding is sight fishing on Colorado rivers, the South Platte primarily, where you're up close and personal with these big trout. They can see you, you have to be stealthy. And when you have this giant flashing beam of light casting over top of a fish with a very polished blank and lots of glare, that's not good. And in my business, it means you're probably not going to be catching that fish. So what we wanted was an unsanded blank, sort of a matte finish. We wanted low epoxy, single foot guides to cut down on weight, to be able to track that line really, really well coming out of the end of the rod tip, and to be flexible. So as a guide, we put our rods through hell, handing it to a client in a boat who has no idea what they're doing and say, go get them. And they're dropping rods, they're banging them on the boat, they're dropping them in the water, they're slamming them into the rod vaults. And we needed a rod that was going to be tough enough to be able to handle all of that over a long period of time without wearing out or breaking. And so we wanted a really strong, lightweight fly rod blank, and that was really, really fun to cast. And that is the biggest key, is you've got to be able to enjoy casting your rod. So what we wanted to do was design a rod that when you pick that thing up, it just feels like an extension of your arm. Wherever you point that rod, that fly goes. Wherever you sling that rod tip, that fly line follows. And it's a joy to fish with. The trout reel that Trey and I envisioned, it needed to be strong enough to be able to handle 2-foot-long trout, but also delicate enough and light enough to be put on light trout rods and fished in smaller rivers for smaller trout. And so the design process started with taking a wide range of measurements of what reels worked best for me. So I've used many reels over the course of my fly fishing guide career, as well as just my own personal reels. I decided to take 4 or 5 of the reels that I love the most and kind of write down what exactly I loved about them. Did I love the narrow spool? Did I love a fast retrieve? Did I love a large arbor or medium arbor? It needed to balance on a fly rod appropriately with a fly line and backing. It needed to balance at a hinge point when people are casting both dry flies, but also casting heavy nymph rigs and streamers. So in order to accomplish both, we came up with the Kistler reel, the Bakk series design, which is an extremely lightweight reel, but an extremely strong machined reel, fully machined reel with a sealed drag, and even down to the very fine details of the reel foot post having rounded corners. Because as a guide, we don't hook our flies on the fly, the little hook keeper on the rod and run it up there. We actually wrap our leader around the back of the reel. And so 4 square corners is gonna weaken a leader over time and kink it a little bit more than rounded corners. So everything that we really, really wanted, we said, let's put it on the table and see if we can make it happen. I really believe that it's one of the more ideal reels that exists in trout fishing today. So if you've got 5-year-old equipment that you love using, by all means fish it. The most important thing is to be fishing. But what you start to recognize as you progress in the sport, if you desire to get better, if you desire to try some different things, is you're gonna need some better equipment. And that's where I think the Kistler fly reel and the rod falls into a specific category for people who want to take their fishing to the next level. We made the rod and the reel work together in such a way that it makes you excited to pick it up and go fish it. It's very beautiful. It's a work of art, to be honest with you. And I think picking it up and fishing it, people are gonna recognize that there's something special about it. Does it make you a better angler? Possibly. Is it gonna make you feel better about what you're doing in that moment? 100% yes.